Hello from the tiny house. I hope this is reaching you all in a place where your hearts feel grounded and you just feel happy about us being in spring, and wherever you are, that this is finding you perfectly on your journey of whatever that looks like in expansion. I just finished an interview that I just did with an incredible interviewer. And I feel so blessed that I literally have the best interviewers so far in sharing this thing called life. But he asked a question, and I thought I would hop on here and talk about this a little bit more because it's never come up before. And I love this. This is what I love about these interviews is some of these interviewers ask such good questions. And he asked one, and I don't know what the question was, but the answer was what I wanted to speak to, which is in my near death experience, I talked a lot about not knowing when I would be dead. And I think that's hilarious. Have you ever thought about that? How will I know when I'm dead? Just take a minute with me and pause on that. I think our conditioned beliefs have always taught us that you will know you're dead because nothing will be happening and it's done. It's all over. But isn't that the thing everyone's trying to escape from? I don't think it's death itself, personally. I think it's the fear of the pain of the death, number one. And then number two, not knowing what happens after we die. To me, I don't think it's the actual death that creates so much heartache here. I mean, obviously, if you love your life, you want to stay and you don't want to die. But I mean, really look at that. We don't spend enough time on death, understanding it. We're all apparently going to do it. We just have to understand what our version of that means. And I think until we get to that, just like understanding who you are in truth, understanding what you are in death is so important. When was the last time you sat and had a deep and meaningful conversation about death? Not logistics, not this is what I want after I die, and these are the people I want to come to my funeral or my ceremony of life, or any of those kind of nuances, if you will. But what happens? What will that feel like? Where do I go? Who do I become? What does this whole place become? And I think until we really spend some time with that, we just are creating so much more suffering for ourselves than we really should be. I know that watching near death experiences is creating like a balm or a softening of that entryway for people. And I think that's what the fascination with watching near death experiences comes from, myself included, right? This didn't happen to me till I was 38 years old. And so prior to that, I don't think I had ever spent any time on death. And I know that to be true because I had my plan D, that suicidal ideation that was with me my whole apparent life for 38 years, had created like a cartoon idea of what death was. I mean, my mind was constantly saying, if you can't make rent this month, you can always kill yourself. If your boyfriend breaks up with you, you can always just die. Like, that's what my depression and anxiety did for 38 years. It created death as an option. It was like a package. If this package doesn't work, you can turn that one in. And yet I had never, all the way up until the day I was successful in this, really stopped and said, what does that look like? And I think if I had spent more time on that, I probably would have never committed suicide because my version of myself back then was so bleak, even though my belief in God, and even what I was saying while I was dying, which is I believe in a God that is so forgiving that even this will be forgiven. I'm not sure that I actually spent a lot of time going, but what does that look like? Yes, he may be forgiving, but what does that look like? So I had designed a set of dogma or activities or stories or programs that told me on that particular day in June in 2008, I don't care what it looks like, I'm just going to do it. But when you get down to it, and I'm in the back of the SUV and I'm dying, I didn't know what death was going to be, right? I had concepts of it. You die, everything goes black, and that's the end, was one. The heavenly one, where I go to heaven and I'm greeted and I have this beautiful, blissful experience and life just continues. Or trapped in purgatory, where I don't even know if I have to make up for the fact that I'm doing this right now. I'm killing myself. Do I go to purgatory or do I go to hell? Hell, that fiery place where this sin that I'm committing of killing myself is going to lead me to this place where, um, yeah, we call hell. I hadn't spent any time with that. You guys, do you get the significance of that? Like, I'm coming in for this one. Do you get the significance of that? Until you really understand in your heart what that experience looks like, it will haunt you and it will be the front of every part of every directive in your life, not just some of them. It will be that directive for everything. You're leading from a place of fear just by not exploring that a little deeper. So subtle, yet really important. I've lost the ability to sit and talk with people about just your general people-y stuff. When I sit down with my people, I am in the deeper conversations. I want to know about you, what makes you tick, why you are the way you are, what makes me operate from this moment, what is dropping in here right now that is creating a suffering for me. And that's where we start the work. That's the invitation. The other thing that came out of the interview, which is exciting and I had never covered, was in my SUV when I had asked that question, how will I know when I'm dead? I made the decision I would just follow the breath, as I mentioned. And I didn't have an idea or an understanding, having never really meditated, that that was a form of meditation, follow the breath, right? So as I said that, and I started to follow the breath, how I actually knew that I was dead, and I've never, I don't think, spoken to this, even though I've been aware of it. I don't think anyone actually pulled it out of me in an interview. We say here that we breathe in and out, in and out, in and out is breath, right? But when the popping and the crackling started in my body, when I was in fact seeming to come out of it, and I at the time thought it was the drugs and the alcohol that I had taken, not realizing that my vibration was shifting and I was turning into particles and atoms and getting ready to expand vibrationally. The last thing was my breath shifted from in and out to out and in, out and in, out and in. So originally it was in and out, in and out, in and out. And then all of a sudden there was like this out and in, out and in. So we think that the breath stops, but that was the last thing I recollect. And then whoosh, that expansion. And it's really funny when I did hospice work and when I'm around people who still do it today, they're aware of this. they speak to this. They'll say that's the last breath they take with them to wherever they're going. And I love that. So it's something I'm going to look into, and you guys do too, because there may be a scientific study out there that shows it. But the analogy I used was, it's like taking a balloon and you haven't tied the end of the balloon off, and you filled it up just enough to hold your fingers on, and you're letting the air out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and the balloon's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But in my experience with this, the expansion started to happen. The balloon came unattached. I was the balloon, and it inverted to an expansion. And with that inversion, the breath went from in and out to out and in. You see, with that flipping inside out. And that makes sense to me because, again, we are talking to going from non duality to everythingness, right? Or I'm sorry, we're going from duality to non duality, everythingness. That fascinates me. That's the stuff that I think us humans could be exploring to make us a little more kind to this physical vessel. And in our self awareness and our self reflection and our inner work, that is the starting place. The invitation is always back to within. We go out here searching in the dream to get these answers and to connect with our vibe tribe to understand this thing we call life, when everything we have is within us, including the guide on how to do it, how to live and how to die. And death isn't that thing that we think it is. I listed a few options there, right? Going to a place of everything just stops and ends, which to me is very different than what I experienced in the void. Um, Going to a place that we call heaven and having just a heavenly experience, which I seem to have had some version of that. Going to a place we call purgatory, or some level within some leveling system that says, you know, you've died and you go here and you don't get to ascend until you go there. That version, I didn't have that experience. Um, and then the one that we're the most terrified of, you've, you know, created so much sin or karmic stuff here that you go to a place we call hell, whatever that looks like for you. My gosh, just thinking about that this morning, the fact that I no longer walk around with those things as even opportunities for me, I think is a huge space where my energy got freed up that day. And I've never really stopped to think about that. So today I thought I would do this video to challenge you. Have you? Have you really stopped to think about what your unspoken truth is about what happens when you die? Now, let me share why I think it's even more important than just what I'm putting here. In my world, this is my channel. I'm not trying to share anyone else's version of this. So don't come back at me and tell me what your world says. That's perfect. You have your own apparent story here, and that's absolutely beautiful. And I will hear your story. I'm open to that. But don't come and tell me my story is incorrect. That is just, that doesn't sit here, because I share openly and vulnerably because I can, not because I have to. And in my version of this, death is every moment, because there is no one here to live or die. But every moment as it drops is that death. And I was just reborn, 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 and I'm reincarnated again, and I was just reborn. And we want this identifier of linear escapes and time and space and, I lived in the 1920s and then I was here in the 1800s, and we want all of that woo woo fun. It's so much simpler than that. It's still woo woo fun, but it doesn't have to be this complex system. It's so simple. We are an eternal vibration. We never end. We're constantly changing. That's the only thing we can be sure of. And seemingly the breath, which we are to breathe and not resist, the rest is done for us. I am reincarnated. I am reborn. And I am dying in every moment. I'm going to show you who is here this morning outside my little tiny house window joining us for this segment of Nurture Your Soul. Oh boy, let's see if I can get it all the way around so you can see everything. My deer have shown up. My hummingbirds are humming away. The squirrels are here. The sun is out. This is the bliss of being human, you guys. This is what it's all about. And I get how heavy it can be being human. I get it. But I also get that we always have an opportunity to slow this down, just like I invited you to do on death, and really speak to it, talk to it. The deer is watching you. That's my pregnant doe. Hi, sweetness. Is it? Oh, wait, that might be one of my bucks. I won't know till you put your head down a little bit. Oh no, that's one of the bucks. Getting their little spring set coming in. And then I've got my sweet hummingbird sitting here, so nosy. My point, you guys, is that we always have an opportunity to inquire. Whatever it is, it's bringing us suffering, the idea of death, not knowing. We're not going to have all the answers, and we shouldn't. But we do have an opportunity to look at the monster under the bed that's creating so much havoc by saying, if I've never even really explored what death means to me, how can it not be a fear that's in my basket of life? How can it not? Just doing this video with you guys made my mind blow open with the fact that I no longer walk around with just those things. And those things are huge. But you don't have to die to see through that illusion. You have to recognize that you're not this body. You're so much more than that. And the rest then starts to fill itself in. I hope that helps. I got so excited when it came out in the interview that I was like, I've got to jump on and literally do a video on this right now. So I'm going to upload this, share it with you guys, and I send you much love in your days wherever you are. Really, 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 really love the comments you guys have been leaving lately. I know there's still some of you that only feel comfortable to private message me. Again, I challenge you. When you comment on these videos, you open an opportunity for someone else to ask or read a question that they may be too afraid to ask or share. I share freely here, and I would love for you guys to as well. You don't have to be bashful. Talking about death and dying, talking about what happens after death and dying. Every human on this planet, I promise you, has the same questions. So what are you afraid of? Why are you hiding behind that keyboard, wanting to ask the question or sending it in my private messages? Post it. Let's get it out here and let's talk about it as a community. Other people will also benefit from them. Much love. Until next time, I see you, and you keep breathing and not resisting. And I promise it gets easier and easier as you go.